Hi, welcome to the Listen Up Girl podcast. This is your daily LGBTQ plus news podcast. I'm your host, Zach Randall Friedman, and today is Friday, July the 31st. Happy weekend. We've got 6 stories for you today. An endorsement that says the quiet part loud, a state that just found a new way to make trans people's lives harder, a study that shows the bias is in the data, a support group getting attacked for the crime of feeding babies, journalists who had 24 hours to flee their own country, and a congressman with an anti-LGBTQ plus voting record now facing his abuse allegations. So let's get right into it. We're going to start with the orange convicted felon endorses a man whose whole political career started in a bathroom. We start in Michigan, where the orange convicted felon just gave his full endorsement to Amir Hassan, a Republican running for Michigan's 8th congressional district. And Hassan's origin story is, by his own account, pretty simple. He says he's gotten into politics because a transgender woman once used the same public restroom as his teenage daughter. Hassan has made a habit of going after drag events, including targeting a drag queen story hour at a local library last December, captioning the promotional image "left agenda" and writing that our children are their target. He's also said he wants to keep LGBTQ plus education out of schools and redirect public funding towards religious and charter schools instead. The endorsement post from the orange convicted felon called Hassan's run for Congress a great honor and promised he'll never let you down. What the orange convicted felon didn't mention is Hassan is a military veteran and former law enforcement officer, which he didn't stop a wave of Islamic-phobic Republicans from publicly objecting to the endorsement anyway, arguing that Muslims shouldn't hold the elected office at all. So even in people cheering him on the bathroom panic, can't agree on what he's allowed to weaponize. Next, South Dakota is about to become the 11th state to trap trans people with mismatched IDs. So next in South Dakota, the state is quietly preparing to become the 11th state in the country to make it functionally impossible for trans residents to update their gender marker on their driver's license. Governor Larry Roden signed a law back in March defining sex strictly as male or female at birth, and that law already blocked trans South Dakotans from updating their birth certificates. Now the Department of Public Safety has updated its internal policy to require an amended birth certificate before anyone can update their license, a document trans people in that state can no longer legally obtain. It's a closed loop, but on purpose. Here's the one silver lining, though. The policy hasn't been enforced yet. Department employees say they're waiting for a signal from above before they start turning people away. That means there's still a narrow window for trans South Dakotans to update their IDs before the doors shut for good. And remember, an ID that doesn't match how you present isn't just an inconvenience. It can out someone in a moment where that's genuinely dangerous. Last month, a trans woman in the state was actually charged for having an invalid license because an officer didn't believe her gender marker. Those charges were eventually dropped. Not everyone gets that lucky, though. Our next story is new study confirms what trans Californians already knew about policing. So sticking with law enforcement, new research out by the Williams Institute at UCLA and UC Irvine looked at 4.6 million police stops across California in 2023, using data collected under the state's Racial and Identity Profiling Act. The findings, people perceived by officers to be transgender or gender nonconforming were searched at nearly twice the rate of people perceived to be cisgender men and roughly 3 times the rate of perceived to be cisgender women. And even though contraband was found at basically the same rate across every group, trans and gender nonconforming people were still arrested more often. Researchers flagged that this is especially troubling given the ongoing efforts to house trans women in men's facilities. In other words, trans people are getting stopped more, searched more, and arrested more for doing nothing more than existing while trans in front of the wrong officer. Oh, it's so hard to read these sometimes. Our next story is Russia LGBTQ plus journalists had 24 hours to flee their own country. So this one is heavy, but it matters because journalists at Parini Plus, Russia's largest LGBTQ plus news and culture site, are speaking out after being forced into exile this year when the site was branded an extremist organization by Russian authorities. Founder Yevgeny Peskimsky told reporters he had just 24 hours to get out after criminal charges were opened against him. He bought a plane ticket, flew to the UK, and applied for political asylum. Other staffers described brutal journeys through multiple countries with no savings and no support. One counselor at the site said his low point came when he was robbed in Madrid, losing his laptop, a hard drive with 20 years of work, and every document he had. He said it was only strangers and charities that kept him off the streets. And this isn't an isolated. Perini Plus is one of the several LGBTQ plus publications now being blacklisted in Russia, along with Pink News, Queerty, and Gay Cities. Since the full-scale invasions of Ukraine, Putin's government has used the war as cover to escalate his crackdown on LGBTQ plus life across the board. Despite all of it, the Perini Plus team keeps publishing from abroad because, as the founder put it, people inside of Russia still are reading. They still need to know someone's still talking to them like being a human. I wonder if my show is going to end up being banned in Russia. Most likely, because I am LGBTQ plus and they don't like that. Next, an anti-LGBTQ plus congressman is now facing his own abuse allegations. So we close with the Ohio Congressman Max Miller, a Republican who has consistently supported anti-LGBTQ plus legislation and who is now facing serious abuse allegations of his own. According to a newly surfaced court documents, detectives, a child welfare caseworker, and a Cleveland Clinic physician all reviewed a broken collarbone injury sustained by Miller's 2-year-old daughter last spring and found the injury suspicious. Bruising that one specialist had resembled a handprint. Miller's ex-wife, Emily Morano, also filed a recording in court, which she confirms Miller about a separate incident where she says he poured steaming hot water on her. In the recording, Miller reportedly didn't deny it happened. This isn't the first time Miller has faced some abuse allegations. Either Stephanie Grincham, the Orange convicted felon's former press secretary, wrote in a 2021 op-ed about dating someone with anger issues and a violent streak, widely understood to be Miller, though she didn't name him. Miller has also called all of it false, saying no police reports were ever filed, and has filed his own defamation suit against his ex-wife, whom he's publicly described as having untreated bipolar disorder. Make of this of what you will, but it's all worth noticing who spends their career legislating what happens in other people's homes. So that's your news for Friday, July 31st. If today's episode gave you something to think about or something to be angry about, because honestly, same, do me a favor, follow the show and listen wherever you listen to your podcast, leave a rating and review, and share this episode with somebody who needs to hear it. You can find me on Instagram and YouTube at The Real Zach R.E. That's Z-A-C-H-R-E. And everything else lives at Listen Up Girl. I'm your host, Zach Reynolds-Friedman. This is Listen Up Girl. Stay loud, stay proud, and I'll be back tomorrow with more LGBTQ plus news. Thanks for listening.